Welcome back to my Unity tutorial Start to Publish Unity Breakout, where we're going to create this game and then we're going to just publish it to the actual Google Play Store. So following on from our last episode, I forgot to mention how to create scenes. So in your assets folder, the top one on your projects, just create a new folder and we'll call it scenes. And in these scenes, just go up to file and then we'll go save scene as. We'll go into the scenes and we'll just call it game. Just like that. That allows you to save the whole scene as is like this, so you can always turn Unity back on and you can access it via the scene. We'll just quickly create one more scene while we're at it, and we'll just right click down in the assets and we'll go create scene and we'll call this one menu. We'll get back to that one later, but for now just do that and add it. We'll just quickly go into file and build settings. Sorry about that, I added it because I've tried recording this twice now and I messed up the first time, so I'm just doing it a second time. But forget that. Just go add open scene and then click and drag the menu one and then put the menu one on top of the game, just like that. We'll talk about that more later in a different tutorial when we actually get to it, but for now we'll just keep moving on. Also, I added the floor here, so if you want, just create a cube, so 3D object cube, and then make a floor and with these positions. Just pause it if you need to quickly copy down all the positions, but you should be sweet after you do that, and your scene should look exactly like mine. So moving on, let's create a couple of scripts. Well, we'll be creating the player movement script this episode, but we'll move on to more scripts in the next episode. But for now, go onto your player and go add component, and we'll add a rigid body. Just real quick, turn off gravity and turn on is kinematic, and then click apply. If you have it as a prefab like this, you have to always press apply, or else it won't apply to these ones down here. Go to your ball now and click and make it a rigid body as well. Turn off gravity and make it is kinematic as well, and click apply. Go back to your player and go add component, and we'll just type in player movement just like that, and then press enter, and then you want it as a C#, and go click and create. So now we have our player movement script, so we can view that in our assets up here, and then we can just click and drag that into there. You can also make scripts down here, so you can just go right click, create C# script. I'm not going to do it now because I already have it, but if you do it like that, you can just pretend that's not there. If you do it like that, it won't add it to the actual object that you want it to. You have to click and drag it just like that. Remember to always press apply. Alright, open it up. Right, so here we are. This is just the standard mono development that comes with Unity. So this is what I'll be using for this tutorial, and maybe in later videos I will be using other things, but for now I'll be just using this. So moving on. We'll be making a couple of variables. A float, I haven't explained what a float is, but a float is what we'll be using for player speed equals 1f. So a float is a variable with a fractional value. Floats can have a digit on both sides of a decimal point. So an integer is the same as a float, but it can't have a it's only a whole number. It can only be a whole number. It can't have .1, for example, whereas a float can have .1 like that. Just leave it as 1.f, 1f for now, and that will work perfectly fine. Going on, we'll create a private vector3. Vector3 is a point of space within Unity, and we will be creating a new vector3, which will be setting the player's spawn point, basically where the player is always going to end up at this location. So 0, -9f, and 0. So 0 on the x, -9 on the y, and 0 on the z. If we quickly look back over onto Unity and just click player, you'll see it's 0 on the x, -9 on the y, and 0 on the z. You can change that to whichever one you want. If your player is lower, then change it accordingly to however you have it. Alright, so we're not going to use void up, void start I mean. Void means you don't have to return anything, it's voided, so everything that you write in here it doesn't need to be returned. Whereas if you had another variable, which I'll explain later on in a different tutorial if we have to use that, then yeah, you have to return, and return is just like this. That would be all you'd have to do, or it depends on what you're returning though. Update is, this is a special word in Unity which will be called every single frame, whereas fixed update is only called every couple of frames. It's not called every single frame like update is though. So those are a couple of Unity specific words, like void start as well is a Unity specific word, so it's already coded into Unity. We're coding with a wrapper. Unity was coded with C++, I believe, and we're allowed to code in C# in Unity as a wrapper. That's a bit too far from this tutorial though, so I won't go too far into that. Let's go float again, and we'll call this one xpos equals. Forgot to quickly mention, a public is like public toilets or public anything. They can be accessed by anyone, so anything can access it at all times. A private is private, obviously. You can't access it. It is specifically for this script, okay? Only this script can access it. And then if you create a float like this, it defaults to private, so I might as well have written private behind here, and it would have made this a private. So I could basically do that, and that now is still a private vector3. I just like to put private there because it's neater for up here anyway, but down bottom it doesn't really matter. Alright, moving on, we'll access the transform of this script's position and its position .x, and then we're going to inputs .get axis horizontal, and then we are going to times that by the player speed. Easy stuff. So basically we're setting a new float variable called xpos, and then we're going to set xpos equals to transform.position x plus the input, so whatever the player inputs, and then we're timesing that input speed by the player speed. Alright, moving on, player pos equals new v3 mathf.clamp. So we're going to clamp the player to a specific area so that he can't get through that area anymore. I'll quickly show you that once I write this line. 10f and 0f. So here we're getting the player's position, and then we're saying that you can't get past -15 on the x value and plus 15 on the x value. So if we look back over here, click on the wall, go to inspector, and you can see that it's -16 on the x and -16 on the x. If we made it 16, that means he could go about halfway in between the wall. It doesn't really matter though if it was 16, because we are going to be turning off their mesh renderers, so you won't be able to see it anyway, but for now we'll just leave it 15 because it looks nicer. But you can change it to, if yours is bigger, change it to a bigger. This is setting it so on the Y value, so it can't go below 10 either, but that really didn't matter. And then one more line, transform dot position equals player pos. Done. That is our player script, player movement script. That's all we need for us to be able to move left and right with the player. So if you do have any trouble with moving, go to Edit, Project Settings, Input, Axis, and Horizontal. Have a look just at your horizontal. Make sure you spelled it right. Capital letters. C# is very specific on capital letters. You have to. It's very case sensitive. So if it's capital anywhere, you have to put a capital. And you can change this to whatever you want as well. Just make sure you remember. But if you do have trouble with moving, make sure the left and the right A and D are correct. The gravity here does not matter right now because we're not using it anyway. But those four there do matter. So let's play and we'll just test it. So A and D. A goes left and D goes right. Look at that. And you see how we're stuck. We can't go any further than minus and positive 15. So that is our player movement for this script. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Definitely check me out my next tutorial. If you've missed one from my previous, check them out and view out all my other videos as well. I do have a C++ video where it explains a bit about integers and that. So yeah, definitely check them out. Like, subscribe, and comment. I can't stress it enough in every video. If you have any trouble, comment and I will always reply back to you. Alright, I'll catch you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.